The yellow post-it note stuck to my refrigerator changed everything. 23 words that destroyed 3 years of marriage, written in Kayla's careful handwriting. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. Don't try to contact me. I stood there holding my morning coffee, still warm in my hands, staring at those words like they were written in a foreign language. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Outside, the Maine coast stretched gray and endless, but inside, everything had just collapsed. My name is Caleb Vance, and until that Tuesday morning, I thought I had a decent life. I'm a logistics consultant, the person companies call when their supply chains are irreparably broken. I fix problems for a living. I should have seen this one coming. But I didn't. Kayla had left before dawn. Her side of the closet gaped empty, hangers dangling like broken bones. She'd taken her art supplies, her laptop, even the little ceramic owl she'd bought at a yard sale last summer. 3 years of shared life, condensed into whatever fit in her Honda Civic. I set the coffee down and pulled out my phone. 23 missed calls from an unknown number. The voicemails started at 3 a.m. Caleb, this is Russell Morrison. We need to talk. Your wife told me about your situation, and I think we can work something out. Call me back. Russell Morrison. I'd never heard the name before, but apparently he knew plenty about me. The second voicemail was different, harder. Listen, Vance. Kayla's with me now and she's not going back. She owes some money, credit cards, that loan you co-signed for her art studio. I'm willing to take care of it, but I need assurances. Call me. By the 5th message, the threat started. You think you can just ignore me? Kayla told me what kind of man you are. Controlling, manipulative. If you don't call me back by noon, I'm contacting my lawyer. Harassment, stalking, financial abuse. I've got enough to bury you. I played that last message 3 times. Russell Morrison's voice had a polished quality, like a radio announcer or a politician. Smooth, practiced, the kind of voice that sold things to people who couldn't afford them. I looked at the post-it again. 23 words. Then I did what I do best. I started solving the problem. First, I called the bank. Joint accounts closed, cards canceled, automatic payments stopped. Kayla's cell phone, disconnected. The art studio lease she'd begged me to co-sign, voided for non-payment. By 10 a.m., I'd severed every financial connection between us. The house felt different now. Quiet in a way it had never been before. Kayla always filled space with noise, humming, tapping her paintbrush against the easel, playing music I didn't recognize. Now there was just the sound of waves outside and my own breathing. I should have felt something. Anger, sadness, betrayal. Instead, there was just this cold clarity, like looking through ice. My phone rang. Russell Morrison. Finally, he said. I was starting to think you were a coward. Who is this? I asked, though I already knew. Russell Morrison. I'm the man your wife chose over you. And right now, I'm the man standing between you and a very expensive lawsuit. I could hear Kayla in the background, her voice muffled but urgent. She was telling him something, but I couldn't make out the words. Here's how this works, Russell continued. Kayla's debts are now your problem. The credit cards, the studio lease, that loan for her art supplies, about $47,000 total. You pay it off, we disappear from your life forever. No, I said. Excuse me? I said no. Kayla made her choice. She can live with the consequences. Russell's voice dropped an octave. You don't understand. I've got lawyers, Vance. Real ones. They eat guys like you for breakfast. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. This time I let it go to voicemail. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I deleted the message and made myself another cup of coffee. Outside, seagulls wheeled over the harbor, their cries sharp and hungry. The tide was coming in. Russell Morrison wasn't hard to find. In a town of 8,000 people, everyone knew everyone's business. especially if that business involved flashing money around. I started at Brennan's Diner, where the waitresses knew more about local gossip than the newspaper editor. Sally Brennan had been serving coffee and collecting secrets for 30 years. Russell Morrison? She refilled my cup without being asked. Sure, I know him. Drives that red Corvette, always talking about his real estate deals. Big shot from Portland, or so he says. You don't sound convinced. Honey, I've seen a lot of men like Russell Morrison. All flash, no substance. He's been coming around for about 6 months now, throwing money at every pretty girl he meets. Your wife wasn't the first. That stung, but I kept my expression neutral. What do you mean? Started with Jenny Lawson, you know, the girl who works at the art gallery. Then it was that teacher from the elementary school. Now, it's your Kayla. Sally leaned closer. Word is, he's got expensive tastes but a shallow wallet, if you catch my meaning. I caught her meaning. From the diner, I drove to the harbor. Morrison's boat was easy to spot, a 30-foot cabin cruiser with easy money painted on the stern. Not very subtle. The harbor master was replacing dock lines when I walked over. Nice boat, I said. Morrison's? He spat into the water. Piece of shit, if you ask me. Engine's shot. Hull's got more patches than a quilt. He's 3 months behind on slip fees, too. Doesn't look like a man with money problems. They never do, until they're asking you to wait on payment. He looked at me suspiciously. You thinking of buying it? Just curious. From there, I went to the town hall. Property records are public information, and Morrison's name appeared on exactly 0 documents. No house, no land, no business licenses. According to the state of Maine, Russell Morrison barely existed. But Kayla didn't know that. I spent the afternoon at the library, using their computers to dig deeper. Social media painted a picture of success. Photos of expensive dinners, weekend trips to Boston, Kayla smiling beside him in restaurants I couldn't afford. The timestamps told a different story. Most of the photos were taken at the same 3 locations, recycled and reposted to create an illusion of constant luxury. Russell Morrison was running a con, and my wife was the mark. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a legal pad making lists. Russell's weaknesses, his lies, his vulnerabilities. I'd spent 15 years analyzing problems and finding solutions. This was just another puzzle to solve. The phone rang. Kayla's number. Caleb? Her voice was small, uncertain. We need to talk. No, we don't. Please, just listen. Russell says you canceled all the credit cards. You closed our accounts. I can't access anything. Correct. But the studio rent is due, and my car payment. And not my problem anymore. I could hear her crying. 3 years ago, that sound would have broken my heart. Now it just annoyed me. You can't just leave me with nothing, she said. You left me with nothing first. That's different. That's emotional. This is money. Real consequences. Both are real consequences, Kayla. You made your choice. Russell says he'll take care of everything, but he needs time to liquidate some investments. Just a few weeks. You could help me until then. I almost laughed. Russell Morrison doesn't have investments to liquidate. He doesn't have a house, doesn't own his boat, and according to 3 different sources, he's behind on everything from slip fees to bar tabs. Silence on the other end. You're lying, she said finally. Am I? Ask him about the boat payments. Ask him why his business isn't registered anywhere in the state. Ask him why every photo on his Instagram was taken at the same 3 restaurants. More silence. He loves me, she whispered. He's using you, just like you used me. I hung up. The Portland Business Journal ran a small piece every Friday called Deals of the Week. It covered real estate transactions, business sales, anything worth more than $50,000. I'd been reading it for years, looking for logistics contracts. This time I was looking for something else. The article was buried on page 4. Morrison Development Group announces Harbor View project. It described a $20 million condominium development on the old fish processing plant site. Russell Morrison was quoted extensively, talking about his vision for revitalizing the waterfront. Perfect. I called the newspaper. Portland Business Journal. This is Janet. Hi, Janet. I'm calling about the Morrison development story. I'm a local investor, and I'm interested in learning more about the project. I can transfer you to our reporter, but honestly, that story's been getting a lot of attention. Seems like Mr. Morrison might have oversold his position a bit. What do you mean? Well, between you and me, we've had 3 calls today from people asking about permits, financing, that sort of thing. Turns out there's no building permits filed for that site. No environmental impact studies, no construction loans. The planning committee has never heard of Russell Morrison or his development company. I thanked Janet and hung up. Then I called the harbor master. It's Caleb Vance. We talked yesterday about Morrison's boat. Yeah, what about it? I'm thinking of making him an offer. Cash deal. Is he around? He's here now, actually, trying to convince me to give him another month on the slip fees. You want me to get him? No, that's fine. I'll come down. I found Russell on the dock, arguing with the harbor master. He was shorter than I'd expected, maybe 5'8", with the kind of tan that came from a bottle and hair that was too perfect to be natural. He wore a polo shirt and khakis, trying to look casual, but coming off as desperate. Russell Morrison? I walked over and extended my hand. Caleb Vance. His face went white. You. Me. I smiled. Beautiful day, isn't it? The harbor master looked between us, sensing tension. I'll leave you 2 to talk, he said, and walked away. Russell straightened his shoulders, trying to regain composure. If you're here to cause trouble, I'm here to congratulate you. That Harborview project sounds impressive. $20 million, right? He relaxed slightly. It's going to transform this waterfront. I'm sure it will. I called the planning committee this morning. They're very excited about it. You called the planning committee? Of course. As a local businessman, I'm always interested in development projects. They told me all about your permits, your environmental studies, your financing package. I paused. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. They told me they've never heard of you. Russell's jaw tightened. Permits take time. It's a complex process. $20 million, though. That's serious money. Where's that coming from? Bank loans? Private investors? Your own capital? That's confidential. I bet it is. I looked at his boat, at the rust stains and peeling paint. Nice vessel. The harbor master tells me you're current on all your payments. Look, Vance, I don't know what kind of game you're playing. No game, just making conversation, man to man, the way you wanted when you called me 15 times yesterday. He took a step back. Stay away from me. Or what? You'll call your lawyers? The real ones who eat guys like me for breakfast? I pulled out my phone and opened the Portland Business Journal website. Funny thing about newspapers. They fact-check their sources after publication sometimes. Janet from the Business Journal is very thorough. She's planning a follow-up story about the Harborview project. I think she'll find it fascinating. Russell's face had gone from white to green. You can't what? Can't tell the truth? Can't point out that you lied to a newspaper about a non-existent development project? Can't mention that you're using fake success to seduce married women? I stepped closer. Russell stepped back. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to leave Kayla alone. You're going to leave me alone. You're going to disappear from this town like the worthless fraud you are. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Russell Morrison really is. You don't understand, he said. I've got connections, people who don't like to be embarrassed. What people? He didn't answer. I walked away, leaving him standing on the dock. As I reached my truck, I heard him yelling something about consequences and regret. I didn't look back. That night, the Portland Business Journal website updated their story with a correction. Upon further investigation, no permits or approvals have been filed for the Harbor View project. Morrison Development Group could not be reached for comment. My phone rang at midnight. Kayla. Do you know what you've done? I've done exactly what needed to be done. Russell is furious. He says you threatened him. I told him the truth. If he finds that threatening, maybe he should examine his life choices. This isn't over, Caleb. Russell has friends. Important friends. Good. Tell them I said hello. I hung up and turned off the phone. Outside, the tide was going out, leaving the harbor floor bare and ugly. But it would come back. It always did. The brick came through my living room window at 3 a.m. I was awake instantly, years of light sleeping from business trips where hotel noises meant the difference between rest and exhaustion. Glass scattered across the hardwood floor, glittering in the streetlight. Attached to the brick was a note. Back off, or things get worse. I called the police. Officer Patricia Mullins arrived 20 minutes later, a thin woman with tired eyes who'd been working nights in our little town for 10 years. Any idea who might have done this? She asked, taking pictures of the damage. I have suspicions. Care to share them? I told her about Russell Morrison, about the harassment calls, about my confrontation with him at the harbor. She took notes, but didn't seem surprised. Russell Morrison, she repeated. Yeah, we know him. Got a complaint last week from the Marriott. Seems he's been entertaining young women in their bar and leaving without paying his tab. What's his background? Officially? Clean record here in Maine. But I made some calls after that Marriott thing. Turns out he's got a history in Massachusetts. Fraud charges, restraining orders, couple of assault complaints that never went anywhere. She looked at the broken window. You might want to consider staying somewhere else for a few nights. I'm not running from him. Didn't say you should. Just saying a little caution never hurt anyone. After she left, I swept up the glass and nailed a piece of plywood over the window. The house felt violated, but I wasn't afraid. I was angry. The next morning, I drove to Portland. Russell Morrison claimed to have connections, important friends who didn't like to be embarrassed. If that was true, I needed to know who they were. I started with the obvious places: bars, restaurants, anywhere a small-time con man might network with bigger fish. The Harbor Grill was Russell's favorite spot, according to his social media. I arrived at lunchtime and took a seat at the bar. You know Russell Morrison? I asked the bartender. Russ? Yeah, he comes in here all the time. Big spender, always picking up tabs. The bartender, a young guy with sleeve tattoos, leaned closer. Though between you and me, his credit card got declined last week. Had to call someone to come bail him out. Who? Some older guy. Expensive suit, spoke with an accent. Russian maybe? Polish? He didn't look happy about having to pay Russ's bill. Russian. That was interesting. I nursed a beer and watched the lunch crowd. Lawyers, businessmen, city workers grabbing quick meals. Nothing unusual until a familiar voice made me turn around. Russell Morrison was walking in with two other men. One of them was wearing the expensive suit the bartender had mentioned, tall, pale, with dark eyes and silver hair. The other was younger, built like a boxer, with scars on his knuckles and a way of moving that suggested violence was never far away. They took a table in the back corner. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Russell looked nervous. The older man did most of the talking, his voice low and calm. The younger one just stared at Russell like he was deciding whether to eat him now or save him for later. I finished my beer and left. From the restaurant, I went to the library and used their computers to research Russian organized crime in New England. What I found made me stop. Viktor Petrov was a name that appeared in several FBI reports from the past 5 years. Money laundering, human trafficking, racketeering. Based in Boston but with operations throughout New England. The photos matched the older man I'd seen with Russell. If Russell Morrison owed money to Viktor Petrov, the broken window was just the beginning. I drove home thinking hard. I'd picked a fight with a small-time con man and accidentally stumbled into something much larger and more dangerous. A smart man would back down, disappear, let Russell and Kayla have their pathetic little romance and deal with the consequences themselves. But I'd never claimed to be smart, and backing down wasn't in my nature. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Unknown number. Caleb Vance? Speaking. My name is Victor Petrov. I believe you know my associate, Russell Morrison. The accent was slight but unmistakable. Russian, with traces of Boston Irish underneath. I know him. Good. Then you understand that Mr. Morrison is under my protection. Your recent activities have caused him distress. This distresses me. I'm sorry to hear that. I don't think you are, but you will be if you continue to interfere with Mr. Morrison's business interests. What business interests would those be? A pause. Mr. Vance, I am going to give you some advice. Free advice, which I rarely do. Walk away from this situation. Forget about your wife, forget about Russell Morrison, and forget about me. Move somewhere far away and start a new life. Do this, and you will live to enjoy that new life. And if I don't? Then you won't. The line was interrupted. I sat in my truck for a long time, engine running, thinking. Victor Petrov wasn't bluffing. Men like him didn't make empty threats. But he'd made one mistake. He'd threatened me over the phone, creating a record, and he'd connected himself to Russell Morrison, making both of them targets. I called Officer Mullins. It's Caleb Vance. I need to file another report. I spent the next 3 days being watched. They weren't subtle about it. A black Mercedes parked across from my house. 2 men in suits drinking coffee at the diner when I went for breakfast. The same faces at the grocery store, the gas station, the post office. Victor Petrov wanted me to know I was being watched. He wanted me afraid. He'd misjudged me completely. On Thursday afternoon, I called Russell Morrison. We need to meet, I said. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Victor told you to back off. Victor can go to hell. This is between us. Silence on the other end. Then, you don't understand what you're dealing with. I understand perfectly. You're a 2-bit con man who got in over his head with the Russian mob. Now you're hiding behind Victor's threats because you can't fight your own battles. Meet me where? The old fish processing plant. Tonight, midnight. That's where I'm supposed to build the condos. Yeah, let's discuss your construction plans. I hung up. The fish processing plant had been abandoned for 15 years, a concrete shell on the edge of town where teenagers went to drink beer and spray paint gang tags. It sat on 3 acres of waterfront property, surrounded by a chain-link fence and no trespassing signs that everyone ignored. I arrived at 11:30 and parked behind the building, out of sight from the road. The Mercedes had followed me, but stayed back, probably calling Victor for instructions. Russell showed up 10 minutes early, driving his Corvette. He parked near the main entrance and got out slowly, looking around like he expected an ambush. I watched from the shadows as he walked toward the building. He was nervous, checking his phone every few seconds, jumping at every sound. The confident facade had cracked completely. At exactly midnight, I stepped out of the shadows. Russell. He spun around, nearly dropping his phone. Jesus Christ, Vance, you scared the shit out of me. Relax, it's just us. No, it's not. He gestured toward the road. Victor's guys are out there. They followed you here. I know. Let them watch. I walked closer. Russell backed up until he hit the wall of the building. What do you want? He asked. I want the truth, about Victor, about the money you owe him, about what you're really doing in my town. I don't owe Victor anything. We're business partners. Partners don't send muscle to collect debts. Russell's face went pale. How do you... I do my homework. Victor Petrov, Boston-based, money laundering and human trafficking. You borrowed money from him to finance your lifestyle, couldn't pay it back, So now you're recruiting lonely wives to help you run whatever scam you're pulling. It's not a scam. Then what is it? He didn't answer. I pulled out my phone and opened the recorder app. Let's try this again. What is your business relationship with Viktor Petrov? I'm not saying anything. Then I'll say it for you. I held up the phone. Russell Morrison is a con man working for Russian organized crime. He targets married women in small towns, seduces them, and uses them to launder money through fake real estate deals. You're crazy. Am I? Then explain the Harbor View project. $20 million for condos that don't exist, permits that were never filed, environmental studies that were never done. Where was that money supposed to come from, Russell? He was sweating now, despite the cold night air. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Viktor gives you money, you create fake development projects, use local women to open accounts and sign documents, then disappear when the money's laundered and the women are left holding federal charges. Russell lunged at me, trying to grab the phone. I sidestepped easily, letting him stumble past me into the gravel. That's assault, I said, still recording. On video. He rose to his feet, breathing heavily. Viktor will destroy you for this. Viktor's going to have bigger problems when the FBI hears this recording. You're bluffing. I stopped the recording and put the phone away. Want to find out? Headlights swept across us as a car pulled into the lot. Not the Mercedes, a smaller vehicle, moving fast. Kayla's Honda Civic skidded to a stop 20 feet away. She got out and ran toward us. Russell! Thank God you're all right. I got your message. She stopped when she saw me. Hello, Kayla. What is this? She looked between Russell and me. What's going on? Your boyfriend was just explaining his business relationship with the Russian mob, I said. That's not... Russell, tell him that's not true. Russell wouldn't meet her eyes. Tell her about Viktor Petrov, I said. Tell her about the money laundering. Tell her how you were going to use her name on bank accounts and property documents until the FBI came looking for someone to arrest. Kayla stared at Russell. Is that true? It's not what he's making it sound like. Then what is it? Russell opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, the Mercedes pulled into the lot with its headlights off. 2 men got out, Viktor's muscle from the restaurant. Shit, Russell whispered. The men walked toward us with the casual confidence of predators. The bigger one spoke first. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Petrov would like to see you. Now's not a good time, Russell said. It wasn't a request. The smaller man looked at me. You must be Vance. That's right. Mr. Petrov sends his regards. He also sends a final warning. Tell Mr. Petrov, I said. The bigger man moved faster than I expected, crossing the distance between us in 2 strides. His fist caught me in the stomach, doubling me over. I gasped, trying to breathe, tasting copper. Hey! Kayla shouted. Leave him alone! The smaller man smiled. Protective of your husband, Mrs. Vance. How touching. Ex-husband, Russell said quickly. Ah, well, in that case. He nodded to his partner. The bigger man grabbed my shirt and hauled me upright. His fist drew back for another punch. Stop! Kayla stepped between us. I said leave him alone. Move, lady. No. The smaller man sighed. Viktor doesn't like complications. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket, a small silver automatic that gleamed in the headlights. Kayla gasped and stepped back. Now we have everyone's attention, he said. Mr. Morrison, you're coming with us. Mr. Vance, you're going to forget this conversation ever happened. Mrs. Vance, you're going to go home and pretend you never met any of us. What about my wife? Russell asked. I mean, Kayla. What about her? The smaller man shrugged. Not our problem anymore. That's when I understood. Russell wasn't just a con man working for Viktor, he was being burned. Viktor was cutting him loose, eliminating the evidence. And Kayla, who could connect Russell to the money laundering scheme, was a loose end that needed tying up. The bigger man still had his grip on my shirt. I could feel his knuckles pressed against my chest, smell cigarettes and cheap aftershave. The smaller man held the gun casually, pointed at the ground, but ready to lift. "Actually," I said, still wheezing from the punch, "I think Victor's going to want to hear this." I pulled out my phone with my free hand and hit the play button. Russell's voice filled the night air. "It's not a scam." "Then what is it?" "Russell Morrison is a con man working for Russian organized crime." The smaller man's eyes widened. "Turn that off." "I don't think so." I looked at Russell. "Want to tell them about the recording I already sent to the FBI? Or should I?" Russell's face went white. "You didn't." "Portland Field Office. Agent Sarah Chen. She's very interested in money laundering operations in coastal Maine." The smaller man raised his gun. "Give me the phone." "It's already uploaded to the cloud. Destroy me, and it automatically went to every major news outlet in New England. I was lying, but they didn't know that." "You're bluffing," the smaller man said, but his voice was less certain now. "Want to find out?" Car doors slammed behind us. More headlights swept across the lot as 3 Portland police cruisers surrounded us. Officers jumped out with weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Drop the weapon! Hands where we can see them!" The smaller man looked around wildly, then dropped his gun and raised his hands. His partner released me and did the same. Officer Mullins appeared beside me. "You all right, Caleb?" "I'm fine. How did you—" Anonymous tip. Someone called in suspicious activity at the old plant. She looked at the 2 Russians being handcuffed by her colleagues. "Looks like good timing." I glanced at Kayla, who was standing by her car with her phone in her hand. She met my eyes and nodded slightly. Maybe there was still some part of my wife left after all. The FBI arrested Victor Petrov at his Boston hotel 3 hours later. Agent Sarah Chen called me the next morning to thank me for the tip. The recording of Russell's confession, combined with financial records seized from Victor's organization, had blown open a money laundering operation that stretched from Maine to Florida. "Morrison's agreed to cooperate," she told me. "In exchange for witness protection, he's giving us everything. Bank accounts, shell companies, other operations we didn't even know about." "What about the women he scammed?" "We're working on that. Most of them were victims, not accomplices. They'll probably face civil penalties, but no jail time." "And Kayla?" "Your wife's in the clear. She never signed any documents or opened any accounts. Morrison kept her clean, probably planning to use her later." I thanked Agent Chen and hung up. Through my repaired living room window, I could see Kayla's Honda parked in the driveway. She'd been there since dawn, sitting behind the wheel like she was afraid to get out. I poured 2 cups of coffee and walked outside. "You coming in, or are you planning to live in your car?" She looked up at me through the windshield. Her eyes were red, her face puffy from crying. She looked younger than her 32 years, and older at the same time. "I don't know if I should. It's your house, too, for now." She got out slowly and followed me inside. I handed her the coffee and sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For calling the police last night. For not letting them destroy Russell." "I didn't call the police." She looked confused. "Then who—" "You did. With your phone, when you realized what was happening." She stared into her coffee. "I couldn't let them hurt you. Whatever else happened between us, I couldn't let them hurt you." We sat in silence for a while. Outside, seagulls argued over scraps in the harbor. The tide was coming in. "Russell's gone," she said finally. "Witness protection. You'll probably never see him again." "Good." She looked up at me. "I was such an idiot, Caleb. Such a damn idiot." "Yes, you were." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I thought you'd disagree. Try to make me feel better." "Why would I do that? You threw away 3 years of marriage for a con man. You helped him threaten me, harass me, try to extort money from me. You were an idiot. Tears started flowing down her cheeks. I know, and I'm sorry, and I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it. So that's it? We're done? I studied her face, looking for some trace of the woman I'd married. She was still beautiful, still had that artist's way of seeing the world that had attracted me in the first place. But something fundamental had changed. Trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself. Yeah, I said. We're done. She nodded like she'd expected it. The divorce papers are already filed, aren't they? This morning. What happens now? You figure out your life. I figure out mine. We try not to hate each other. She finished her coffee and stood up. I'll come by later for my things. What's left of them? Kayla. She turned back. For what it's worth, I hope you find whatever you were looking for. I thought I was looking for excitement, adventure, something more than this. She gestured around the kitchen. Now I think I was just looking for a reason to run away. From what? From growing up, from being responsible, from being married to a good man who deserved better than what I gave him. She kissed my forehead, gentle as a butterfly landing. Goodbye, Caleb. Goodbye. I watched her drive away, then called my lawyer to finalize the divorce proceedings. By evening, it was done. 3 years of marriage dissolved into paperwork and divided assets. The house felt different now. Not empty, quiet, peaceful even. I could hear the ocean again, something I'd forgotten during the chaos of the past week. I made dinner, poured myself a whiskey, and sat on the back deck watching the sunset. Tomorrow I'd start putting my life back together. Tonight, I just wanted to listen to the waves and think about nothing at all. My phone buzzed, text message from an unknown number. Mr. Vance, this is Agent Chen. I think you'll be interested to know Viktor Petrov was found lifeless in his cell this afternoon. Apparent suicide. Case closed. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. The disappearance of Viktor Petrov meant that there was one less threat in the world, but it also meant Russell Morrison had lost his most powerful protector. The man who'd threatened my life was now completely alone, vulnerable, dependent on federal marshals who saw him as nothing more than a useful asset. Perfect. I poured another whiskey and called my lawyer. Jim, it's Caleb Vance. I need you to do something for me. Sure, Caleb, what do you need? I want you to file a civil suit against Russell Morrison. Fraud, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conspiracy, whatever sticks. I want him tied up in legal battles for the next 5 years. Caleb, the man's in witness protection. We might not even be able to serve him papers. Find a way. And Jim? Make sure the suit is public record. I want every news outlet in New England to know that Russell Morrison is a federal informant who destroyed multiple families with his schemes. There was silence on the other end. That's pretty ruthless, Caleb. He threatened to destroy my life. Turnabout's fair play. I'll see what I can do. I hung up and walked to the window. Down in the harbor, fishing boats were heading out for the night catch, their lights bobbing like fireflies on the dark water. This was my town, my home, my life that Russell Morrison had tried to steal. Now, it was time to make sure he never tried to steal anyone else's. The next morning, I drove to Portland and met with Agent Chen at the FBI field office. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with tired eyes that had seen too much human stupidity. Mr. Vance, thank you for coming in. Agent Chen, I wanted to discuss Russell Morrison's future. She raised an eyebrow. What about it? He's going to testify against Victor's organization, right? Put away some very dangerous people? That's the plan. And after that, new identity, new life, federal protection. Standard witness protection protocol. I leaned forward. What if I told you Russell Morrison has been running cons for years before he ever met Viktor Petrov? What if I told you there are at least 6 other women in 3 different states who lost money to his fake investment schemes? Agent Chen's pen stopped moving. What are you talking about? I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. Jenny Lawson in Bar Harbor lost $12,000 to Morrison's fake art gallery investment. Sarah Blake in Camden, $20,000 for a non-existent restaurant venture. Maria Santos in Bangor, $15,000 for solar panel installation that never happened. I spread photos and documents across her desk. I spent the past week tracking down his previous victims. Russell Morrison isn't just a money launderer, Agent Chen. He's a serial con artist who's been destroying lives long before he met Victor. She studied the documents. Why didn't these women come forward before? Shame, embarrassment. The amounts were small enough that local police treated them as civil matters. But it's a pattern, Agent Chen, a clear pattern of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable women. What do you want me to do about it? I want you to consider whether the federal government should be protecting a man who spent the last 5 years systematically defrauding innocent people. Agent Chen leaned back in her chair. Mr. Vance, I appreciate your diligence, but Russell Morrison's cooperation is crucial to dismantling Victor's network. We can't just abandon our agreement with him. I'm not asking you to abandon it. I'm asking you to honor it completely. Put him in witness protection. Give him a new identity, and then make sure every law enforcement agency in the country knows exactly what kind of man they're protecting. She was quiet for a long moment. That would effectively end his ability to run cons in the future. Exactly. It would also make his life very difficult. Good. Agent Chen gathered the documents and put them in a file. I'll look into these cases, Mr. Vance. If what you're telling me is true, it changes things. Everything I've given you is verifiable. Names, dates, bank records, police reports. Russell Morrison is a predator, Agent Chen. The fact that he helped you catch Victor doesn't change that. I stood to leave, then turned back. One more thing. When you relocate Morrison, I'd suggest somewhere warm, maybe Arizona or Nevada, somewhere far from the ocean. Why? Because coastal towns have a way of exposing frauds. Something about the tide. It always brings the truth to shore eventually. 2 days later, the Portland Press-Herald ran a front-page story. Local con man testifies against Russian crime boss. The article detailed Russell Morrison's cooperation with federal authorities, his history of fraud, and the multiple women he'd victimized over the years. By afternoon, the story had been picked up by news outlets across New England. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number. Caleb Vance? Speaking. This is Russell Morrison. Do you know what you've done? His voice was different now, scared, desperate. The smooth confidence was gone, replaced by the whining of a cornered rat. I've done exactly what needed to be done. The FBI transported me to a safe house in goddamn Nevada, in the middle of the desert. And now every newspaper in the country knows I'm a federal witness. Do you have any idea how dangerous that makes me? I do. That's the point. Victor's people will find me. They will destroy me. Probably, but at least you won't be able to con any more innocent women first. You're crazy. You're crazy, you piece of shit. No, Russell, I'm thorough. There's a difference. I could hear him crying on the other end of the line. The great Russell Morrison, reduced to tears by the consequences of his own actions. Please, he whispered. Please, just leave me alone. I'll never come back to Maine. I'll never contact Kayla again. Just please stop. It's too late for that. What do you want? Money? I don't have any money. I don't want anything from you, Russell. I want you to understand something. You came into my town, you seduced my wife, you threatened my life, and you thought you could walk away without consequences. But every action has a reaction, and yours has been a long time coming. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I never should have. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. I hung up. That night, I sat on my deck with a glass of wine, watching the stars reflect on the harbor. The air was crisp with the promise of autumn, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the foghorn from Pemaquid Light. Kayla had left that morning, driving away with everything she owned packed into her Honda. She was moving to Portland, she'd told me, planning to start over with her art. I'd wished her well and meant it. Her betrayal had hurt, but in the end, she'd chosen to do the right thing when it mattered most. Russell Morrison was in a federal safe house in Nevada, looking over his shoulder and waiting for Victor's associates to find him. Even if they didn't, his reputation was destroyed. Every law enforcement agency in the country now had his photo and description. He'd never be able to run another con without someone recognizing him. And Victor Petrov was not with us, taking his secrets with him to the trial that awaited people like him. The house felt different now. Not empty. Peaceful. The silence that had once bothered me now felt like a luxury. No more lies, no more drama, no more threats. Just the sound of waves against the rocks and the occasional cry of a gull. I'd learned something important over the past few weeks. Revenge wasn't about violence or dramatic confrontations. It was about patience, preparation, and the systematic destruction of your enemy's ability to hurt you or anyone else. Russell Morrison had tried to destroy my life, and in response, I'd destroyed his future. Not with a gun or a fist, but with documents and phone calls and the relentless application of truth. My phone buzzed with a text message. Agent Chen. Morrison's testimony helped us arrest 12 more members of Victor's organization. Case closed. Thanks for your cooperation. I deleted the message and finished my wine. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new clients with impossible logistics problems, new puzzles that needed solving. But tonight I was exactly where I belonged, in my own house, on my own land, answering to no one but myself. The reckoning of Caleb Vance was complete. Russell Morrison would spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, knowing that somewhere out there, the man he'd tried to destroy was living peacefully by the sea, having won the only victory that truly mattered. I'd gotten my life back.